I'm here at Burwood Park. This is not too far from the city centre of Sydney, and there's a body of water here, and I found that even in the most built up of cities, if you've got a body of water in a park, you've got wildlife. Burwood Park. First up, it's a war memorial. It's right near the Westfields shopping centre and the Burwood train station. It's a large park for a city. In the times I've been here, I've noticed people are gathering to exercise, to meditate, to dance. But I'm here for the wildlife. Before I start looking at the wildlife, I want to look at some of these amazing trees here. The Moreton Bay fig. It's also known as the Australian banyan. It's an amazing tree with buttress roots. These trees stretch out their roots to form a strong support against blowing over. So these native fig trees are really an amazing thing to have around, especially for those who love wildlife. You got the ibis, you got pigeons, you got all sorts of parrots coming in to eat the figs. At night time you've got the mammals coming in. You got the possums, you got your large flying foxes, also known as large fruit bats. Okay, I'm going to share with you the tools that I use when I go out in the field. First of all, I usually have a sketchbook of some sort. This one here is a really ultra thin one, which I made myself. I just stitched together bits and pieces and just put a bit of camouflage on the outside. It's really lightweight. Now, travelling over to Sydney, I had carry-on luggage, which means that I wasn't allowed to exceed 7 kilograms. So every little bit of weight is important. Lightweight sketch pad. One of my favourite tools, and this is not an ad for Derwent, I just like their product. So they're not sponsoring me for this, but the Derwent Ink Tense pencil is probably one of my favourite watercolour pencils, and I usually have an ink black or another muted colour. So that's a really good way of starting a drawing. I also have this when that one's a little bit too black. I have this one here, which is just a cheap woodless graphite pencil. It's a 4B. It's a lightweight one. Rather, it's a soft one. I have a paintbrush. I have this one here, which has a reservoir of water in it here. And the great thing about this, you squeeze it a little bit and water comes out, and you can melt it really quickly. Melt the watercolour pencil, that is. I'm going to demo this soon. This is my watercolour palette. Now, it was a Lucius, but to be honest, most of that's probably now Winsor & Newton, because sort of like when you get like you need a filling, you see that one's empty. I tend to fill them up with nice tubes of Winsor & Newton. And the other one that I use is a gouache of some sort, and no particular brand, I'm not too fussy, but gouache in a tube. I like to have that sort of coming out of the tube for a dry brush technique, something I can't do with watercolour unless it comes from the tube. Anyway, I'll demo that later too, so stay tuned for some demonstrations. That's the tools I use. The Great Australian Ben Chicken. So the ibis is not well liked among Australians. However, I mean, it's an animal that we can sort of all enjoy. I think a lot of Australians just love to complain about it. We have all these amazing memes about them. Everybody calls it a Ben chicken. Everybody complains about how filthy and awful they are. But secretly deep down, I think a lot of Aussies just love the Ben chicken, and even proud of it. I'm sure the Ben chicken has its fans. Anyway, I find it's a really good subject to draw. It's got a very elegant sweeping line to the beak. The other bird I've been drawing is the corellas. Interesting that these corellas are keeping their distance, whereas corellas in other parts that are allowed to be fed will come up and they'll just really molest you and even bite you. I've had that experience before. Okay, a demonstration. Just using my woodless pencil here, I'm going to just do an ibis here just to sort of demonstrate how I would start a sketch, and I'm doing it super fast as I would out in the field. I mean, I'm in the studio at the moment, but out in the field this is what I do. So step 1, quick rough sketch. Step 2 is to get this just water brush here, and you notice that even though it was not technically a watercolor pencil, it still does dissolve a little bit when you're using this brush. And so this is so good for the more greyish sort of tones. I'll make that look dirty. What's handy about drawing in a city park is you've got park benches, you've got things to rest your artwork on. It's like making up a little studio out in the open. Hey guys, have you guys ever broke the law without knowing, and then suddenly you realise you've done the wrong thing? Whoops. So next what I do is I get the gouache, white gouache. I just put a tiny little dab there. Now it'd be handy if I had another brush, but you know, travelling light can do almost everything with this one brush here. Very careful not to squeeze now because we don't want water there, because we're doing what's called dry brushing. So with dry brush, it's almost like you're allowing the paint to sort of like drag. So you drag it and there's a softness to it. That's the dry brush technique. Now for those who watch this video to get a few hints on how to draw and how to create some art, I hope this video has been very handy to you. And for those who are watching just to learn a little bit more about wildlife, I hope it's been good for you guys as well. Let me know in the comments section what you're here for. Are you here for the art, to learn a few hints, or are you here to learn a bit more about wildlife? Let me know, and see if I make the next video even better. Burwood Park's this nice little oasis in the middle of a big shopping centre. It's been really cool hanging out with the birds, but check out the next video. I'm going to hang out with some dragons. Okay, before we go, let's have a quick look through my sketchbook. So here's those fig trees, wonderful bases. There's a lot of fun drawing those. The fun thing about this is you can't really get it wrong if this is not exactly the way they were, and that takes a lot of pressure off. So it's always good to draw something like that, something be organic, something that doesn't have to be perfect. Here we have a few rough sketches of some pigeons and a bit of an ibis there. That was just done with that woodless pencil, and then just a quick wash over just to seal it in. Over here you've got more of the hibbos, the bin chickens, all different poses. I tend to draw like this because you'll see one doing something, you get a little bit of a sketch in and then it will move, and so you move on to another one and you come back to it and hopefully see it do the same thing again or something similar. That's why you'll see a lot of that. Okay, over here there's a corella, which I've put a little bit of colour in there. It's the thing, white's never really white. And what's happening here? Okay, so this little baby there was giving mum a hard time, kept squawking and chasing Mum and walking around, and Mum was going away, and then gave up and let the baby feed, and it would stick its beak right down into Mum's crop and pull out some bin juice, I guess. The funny thing is, the seagulls waiting. The seagulls dived in and was trying to get some of that as well. So I think that's part of the reason Mum was walking away. She was trying to get away from the seagulls. Gross. Some people think that's gross, but I just see it as nature. Well, the next video coming up soon is the water dragon. See you then.